Hello, today we are going to talk about uh, two very specific and important topics in any business: healthy and security at work. First of all, we need to know that we need to work in accident prevention. Industrial safety today has been a matter of individual effort, including organized or cultural procedures within organizations. When I say that it's been a matter of individual effort, it means that not everybody has the same idea about these specific topics. The evolution of safety and security, it's like this graph shows. First of all, there are a part where we as workers, we are dependent on our company. First, we care about ourselves using instincts. Then when we have supervision, we tend to be a little bit independent. Security, it's about me, not about because other people tell me to do so. I make it my own issue, and that makes it independent. Then it's a matter of the team. And when we as a team care about each other in terms of healthy and security, there is an interdependent factor that help us be more healthy and more secure in our works. When we are dependent, my safety is the responsibility of the manager. It's not my responsibility, it's the responsibility of someone else. Management commitment to creating a safe environment, safety as a condition of employment, continuous monitoring and capacity and security, this supervision right here, control emphasis and goals set by the supervisor, and we value all employees. This is good. This is good that the employers care about the employees, but we need to add more tasks, more activities, more caring about the work, and that's why we need to go from a dependent security to an independent security, and not stopping to do all of this. When it's an independent issue, safety is my responsibility. So knowledge, commitment, and personal standards are established. We recognize, assimilate, and value security ourselves. We put it into practice. We make it a habit, an everyday habit of doing safe activities, doing not having not much risk. From the dependent part, of course, we are going to have some politics about how we need to do some procedures. The company need to provide us with some equipment to make our task more safe and secure. We also, in this independent phase, get involved in improvement process. We talk about what we are doing, what we are looking, what we need. And finally, we get to the interdependent part, where safety is everyone's responsibility. It is encouraged us working as a team on safety. We develop an interest in others, not just me. There is a mutual supervision. I supervise my teammates supervise me. The administration, the managers supervise us. We talk with them about what we need in terms of health and security, and we seek common satisfaction. In terms of safety and security, there is an international law that it's called the OSHA law by Williams and Steiger. According to this law, employers had to provide each of their workers with a safe place and work that it's free of risk, which can cause injury or death. So our main goal is to get a place of work free of risk. This law also says that both employers and workers as a team must respect this law, must embrace this law, respect it, and apply it in terms of procedures, activities. Here in Mexico, here's a little bit of history of how the regulation of industrial safety has been. It all starts in 1857 with the political constitution of the United States of Mexico, with the establishment of regulation to protect workers. Then in 1904, with the Villada law, there is some issues about worker protections again. In 1906, King's Law established norms regarding time, way, and place for the development of work. In 1917, with the new political constitution of Mexico, there is an ordinance to guarantee good working conditions and compensation and sanctions where necessary. We establish what to do and what is going to happen if we don't do it. In 1931, we have our federal labor law. 1943, our social security law for health. 1946, new regulations on work and hygiene. 1970s, reforms to the federal labor law, established in 1931, some 40 years or so later. 1973, there are some reforms to the law of the Institute of Social Security. In 1978, there is a general regulation of safety and hygiene at works. 1986, there are some reforms of law of the Mexican Institute of Social Security. In 1991, there are some instructions for the general regulations on safety and health at work. And it kept going until 1993 with official Mexican standards applicable to industrial safety and hygiene. There are established those standards so we know what is good, what is bad specifically, not just in general terms. In 1997, there are federal regulations on safety, hygiene, and work environment. And also in 1997, reforms of the law of the Mexican Institute of Social Security. So up until here, what we see, it's an evolution from 1857 to 1997 of the different concepts that we are going to later review. First, we must establish that there is a difference between safety and industrial hygiene. The difference between safety and hygiene is that safety uses techniques, resources, and procedures to prevent and protect the worker, the work teams from any type of accident. And hygiene uses resources for the prevention of work-related diseases. So safety goes to accidents and hygiene go to prevent diseases. There is also some cost associated with safety and hygiene. Here are some data. More than 550,000 work accidents currently occur in our country annually. That's a lot. That's a lot of accidents. 500,000 accidents with an average cost of 200,000 pesos per accident. And this is not just in terms of money. Money helps us quantify the consequence of those accidents, but the securement and the health of people are also very important. 65% of claims nationwide are hidden by employees. So this is not good. This will mean that our workers are not sure enough, are not confident enough to report those accidents. So we must make our internal policies, our internal working documents, we must make them available to our workers, and we have to be sure that they know what they represent, what the responsibilities they have, and also what the company it's obligated to give them in terms of safety and security, so they are sure enough to report an accident, even if it's a little accident. Why do we need to choose to invest in security issues? Here are some more data. There were 1,408 deaths from occupational hazards in 2016 at the Mexican Security Service. The detail reports that of these 1,408, 986 were due to accidents at work, almost 400 due to accidents on the way to the workplace, and 23 due to work-related illnesses. So here we have accidents and health combined and separated into these quantities right here. Here is a graph of how much we spent on these topics, and it's increasing. Here are some examples that we can see here in a region at Puebla. This is a chemical plant. Here is TAMSA at Veracruz. And now we are going to look at the video that will help us to know a little bit about the equipment for the personal protection. Okay. Now we're here.
Equipo de protección personal. En todas las empresas existen peligros y riesgos, los cuales se deben minimizar, eliminar o controlar con la finalidad de proteger la seguridad y salud de los trabajadores. El equipo de protección personal debe ser considerado como una alternativa complementaria de seguridad, solo utilizada para aumentar la efectividad de cualquier estrategia primaria para prevenir accidentes y enfermedades profesionales. Definición de equipo de protección personal. Denominación dada a un equipo o conjunto de equipos destinados a dar garantía a la integridad física del trabajador a través de la reducción del grado de exposición. Recuerde, los equipos de protección personal no reducen el riesgo o el peligro, solamente protegen al individuo del ambiente y del grado de exposición. ¿Cuándo se utiliza el equipo de protección personal? El equipo de protección personal es la última barrera de protección entre la persona y el riesgo. Se utilizan cuando es imposible controlar el riesgo en su origen, cuando es imposible instalar una protección colectiva eficaz, existe un riesgo residual a pesar de la protección colectiva, en situaciones de riesgo esporádicas, rescate o emergencia. Normas de uso. Debe ser de uso personal, en beneficio de las medidas sanitarias y de salud del usuario. La elección del equipo debe ser adecuado, conforme al riesgo, tiempo de exposición y límites permisibles, debiendo considerar que se encuentren certificados. Debe tener la propiedad de adaptabilidad para el usuario y debe mantenerse en perfecto estado de limpieza y funcionalidad. Ventajas del equipo de protección personal. Proporciona una barrera entre los riesgos y el trabajador. Disminuye la gravedad de las lesiones sufridas por el trabajador. Mejora el resguardo de la integridad física del trabajador. La mayoría de los equipos de protección personal son de fácil selección. Son fáciles de implementar. Y existe una gran variedad de ofertas en el mercado. Clasificación de los equipos de protección personal. Protección de cabeza, protección de ojos, cara, protección de dedos, manos y brazos, protección de pies y piernas, protección de la piel, protectores respiratorios y por último, protección total del cuerpo.
So all of this equipment should be provided by our employers. This is very important to establish. Of course, they should have some uh, specific rules that we must apply in order to use them correctly. And of course, if we do not and the equipment gets damaged in the use, maybe there can be some sanctions, or maybe we will be obligated to buy our own equipment if we damage the one that the company provide us. Very good. There are some legal foundations of occupational and safety health, as we did in the timeline review of how this happened here in Mexico. There is, of course, our Constitution, our federal work law, the general law of ecological equilibrium and ambience protection or environmental protection. And of course, there is also the law of roads, paths, and bridges for federal auto transport. In terms of legal foundation of occupational safety and health, there are some articles in our Constitution. I'm not going to review all of them, and it's not your obligation to learn all of this. You need to know where it is and how to use it. For example, there is in Article number 4. It talks about the right to health. Article 27 establishes the principle of the Federal Electrical Commission. Article 73, there are some laws on health, safety, and environmental protection. Article 123 establishes all the principles of labor regulation, legislation, including health and safety. Some of them are complementary of the others. In terms of our Secretariat of Labor and Social Security, there is the federal labor law with these articles. Some talking about the cause of termination of the contract if an employee refused to comply with safety regulations, the obligation of the worker, the definition of occupational hazard, the different types of disabilities that originate from occupational diseases. We must be informed of this. The rights of a worker that acquires when his health has been broken, the obligation of the employer to provide medical service. There is it's your right, but it's combined with the obligation of the employer. The safety and security hygiene commissions. All of these concepts are established in our federal labor law. The point out of different occupational diseases, the table of evaluation of permanent disabilities. All of these must be taken into account. There is also some federal regulations on safety, hygiene, and work environment. There are some employer obligations that we must know. This comes from having a diagnosis on safety and health at work, and studies that correspond with this risk analysis. So there is we don't stop at having a diagnosis, but we need to take actions to solve the problems identified in this safety and health diagnosis. We must integrate a health and safety program at work in relation to said diagnosis. We must guarantee the provision and preventive health and safety services at work. We must have a doctor, a nurse that help the employees when they have an accident. We must carry out actions for the recognition, evaluation, and control of pollutants in the work environments. There must be an application of medical tests to the occupationally exposed personnel to some substances that may cause them a disease. We must provide workers with personal protective equipment and inform them of the risks to which they are exposed. They must know what they are exposed to. And it's not only our obligation to tell them that that they have a risk if they are working with us, but to provide them with the security issues that will make it impossible for them to get hurt or get sick. We must be sure that we are working on a safe environment, not just that there is some risk and there you go. We must have the opinions, reports of results, and certifications of compliance in matters of safety and health at work in terms of the corresponding official Mexican standards. We must comply with these standards. And maybe if we are real interested in this, we can be satisfied by just complying with the law, but also with having more items that make our work more safe and more healthy. We must confirm that contractors comply with occupational health and safety measures when regarding to service at our facilities. So when we contract some other companies to come to work to our place, we must be sure that they are complying with not only their safety and security issues, but with our safety and security issues. There is also an issue about the federal regulation of safety, hygiene at work environment. We must stipulate the occupational diseases and the assessment and disabilities. We must regulate the conditions at the workplaces, the equipment and handling materials must satisfy, and general public sales provisions and campaigns. So everybody is informed about these important topics. In terms of our Social Security law, these are some articles that we must review. From Article 51, that establish immediate notice after the work-related illness is discovered, how to do it. Articles 56 and 57 indicate the benefit in kind to which the worker who has suffered an occupational illness, if he is going to need hospitalization, a prosthesis, rehabilitation, etc. Articles from 58 to 67 regulate the constituent capitals that make up the amount of benefits granted by our Social Security Institute, and that must be covered by the company. Very well. So now we had to review the law background of security and health at work. Now we are going to talk about the specifics of security and health at work. First of all, The most important thing is to take care of the life and health of our workers. This is the most important thing. Without our workers, we're nothing. It's as simple as that. Any accident can affect you economically and technically, not just to the company, but also to the worker. And in terms of health and security, our workers are first. It can prevent the worker from having the opportunity to perform a work activity again. Some irreversible processes that comes from accidents. So we must establish how to prevent. And for that, we must know the basics of safety and health at work for preventing risk. What do we mean by safety at work from these safety basics? Safety at work, it's the set of actions that allow locating and evaluating risk and establishing measures to prevent work accidents. And occupational risks are accidents and illness to which workers in exercise or due to the activity they carry out are exposed. So we must have safety at work, but we must also identify some accidents and illness that our workers are exposed due to the exercise of their task or their everyday work, so we can prevent them. There are also some concepts as danger and risk. Danger is a source or situations with potential damage in terms of injury or damage to health, property, the work environment, or a combination of this. Any of this that we identify, it's a danger. A risk, it's the combination of the probability and consequences of an event identified as dangerous. So everything we acknowledge here or we identify, it's a risk. Within a workplace, it is the probability that a person will be involved directly or indirectly in an accident or work-related illness, and the magnitude of the damage. So a risk is the probability of getting into danger. There are also the concept of accident. An accident is an unwanted event resulting in injury to people, damage to property, or loss to processes. It is a consequence of contact with a substance, object, or exposure to its environment above the limit capacity of a person's body and structure. This is the definition of accident according to the federal labor law. But there are also some Mexican norms that define accident, and it's kind of the same, but we must be sure of it. Accident, it's an unwanted event that result in loss of life or injury, damage to property, or the work environment. We review these concepts, not that you know them by heart, but that you know that you must comply and understand all of them so you can have a safety working environment. An incident, different from an accident, it is an unwanted event. It is also an unwanted event, which under slightly different circumstances could have resulted in personal injury, property damage, or loss to the process. It's similar to the accident, but it can become an accident if some of this slightly changes. An incident is also an event that can result in an accident or has the potential to cause it. A work accident is any immediate and subsequent organic injury or functional disturbance or death produced suddenly in exercise or due to work, whatever the place and times in which it occurs. So a work accident can happen at the place of work or as a consequence of any action that happened in your work. It's like a brain concussion. You may be hit by something in your workplace. At the time, you didn't feel bad, or it didn't happen anything at that specific moment. But maybe later at home, you kind of feel dizzy. You need to go to the doctor. The doctor diagnoses a concussion, and it is consequence from your work. Included in the above definition are accidents that occur when moving directly from home to the workplace and from the latter to the former. Okay, so any accident or any organic injury or functional disturbance that happens when you are going to work or coming back from work are also work accidents, are also considered work accidents. There is also the definition of work sickness. Any pathological state derived from the continuous action of a cause that has its origin or reason at work or in the environment in which the worker is forced to provide his services. An injury, it is the loss of the physical or mental integrity of the individual, physical or mental. A temporary disability is the loss of faculties or aptitudes that partially or totally makes it impossible for a person to carry out their work at some time. There is a partial permanent disability. It is the decrease of faculties. Here, in the last concept, it is a temporary disability, is the loss of faculties or aptitudes that partially or totally makes it impossible to work. Here are not losing them, but just decreasing the faculties or aptitudes of a person to work. And a total permanent disability, it is the loss of faculties, not just the decrease, or aptitudes of a person that makes it impossible to carry out any job for the rest of his life. And you don't want your workers to get partial, total disabilities, injuries, or temporary disabilities. What is an unsafe act? It is the action of a person with the probability of causing damage or accident and depends exclusively on the worker. Okay, I think we get the idea. It's a kind of a long video, so I just pause it. I get we get the right idea of what this unsafe acts means. Some possible causes of these unsafe acts. It's not only to identify that we have unsafe acts, but it is needed to prevent them. So the possible causes can be we are operating equipment without authorization, like this guy right here. We do not have a point of warn. Nobody advises not to do that. We do not use protective equipment. We're just joking, but joking it's in any case in life it's dangerous, but at work it's more dangerous than in any other occasion. We don't know how to lift something, how to bend our knees and use our back so we can lift something in a correct manner, or maybe the machinery that we are working with it's not clean or needs maintenance. As a summary, the causes of an unsafe act can be from we cannot do it, we don't know how to do it, or we don't want to do it. This not wanting to do it, it's awful. It's not that because you cannot. Maybe I can teach you how to do it. You do not know. I can also teach you. You don't want. I can teach you. I can teach you to want something in terms of safety. The only thing that we must do there, it's maybe in the correct manner, invite our workers to do it, but with the consequences of if you don't do it, then I'm gonna have to fire you, and I will have a valid cause for firing. As with the unsafe acts, there are also unsafe conditions. These conditions can cause injury to people, lost in the process, property damage, and damage to the environment. And let's see this little video right here, a little bit of it. What are some possible causes of an unsafe condition? Maybe there are some defective tools and equipment, poor order and cleanliness, temporary facilities, poor warnings, a deficient or non-existent guard, or a defective, inadequate, or missing something in the process. So, in this case, an unsafe condition can occur because of the construction of the facility, the design, the maintenance, or operation. Now let's talk a little bit about hygiene at work. This is a discipline that it's aimed to the recognition, evaluation, and control of agents to which workers are exposed in their workplace and that can use an occupational disease. An agent is any form of matter of energy that exists in the work environment and that under certain circumstances can cause harm to the worker's health. These agents can be physical, chemicals, biological, ergonomics, and psychosocial. The physical agents, it is there are some aggressive energetic states that take place in the environment. For example, noise, vibration, heat, cold, lighting, ventilation, abnormal pressures, radiation, and its effects can act on specific organs. In later videos, we are going to explain all of this in terms of ergonomics. For chemical agents, it is any natural or synthetic substance that during manufacture, handling, transport, storage, or use can contaminate the environment. So not only it's during the manufacture, but the handling, the transport, the storage, or use, as we saw on the diagrams. And can also produce irritating, corrosive, explosive effects, toxic, flammable, likely to alter the health of people who come into contact with them. So that's why equipment such as we are looking here in this picture is very important to have and to use. There are also some biological agents. They are all those living organisms and substances derived from them present in the workplace, which may be capable of causing negative effects on the health of workers. Some worms, viruses, fungus, bacteria. These negative effects can materialize in infectious, toxic, or allergic processes. But there are also psychosocial agents. They are the situations that cause job dissatisfaction or fatigue and that negatively influence the mood of people. We can also talk a little bit about psychosocial risk factors that can cause anxiety disorders, not having enough time to sleep, severe stress and adaptation that can be derived from the nature of the job functions, the type of work shift, and exposure to severe traumatic events or acts of workplace violence to the worker due to the work performed. For workers to help prevent disease, they must know the characteristics of each of the pollutants and the measures to prevent their action, monitor the maximum time they can be exposed to a certain type of contaminant. They also need to monitor and practice to keep their workplace orderly and clean. They should inform their employer about abnormal condition at works and in their body, and they properly use protective equipment, and they must undergo an initial and periodic medical examinations. They must do all of this, and the employer must provide them all of this. We already talked a little bit about work sickness. And in terms of routes by which chemical and biological agents enter in the body, they can come from the respiratory tract, the cutaneous route by the skin, and by ingestions. There are some main diseases that are caused by exposure to dust, gas, fumes, vapors, and they are acute and chronic intoxication, respiratory diseases as bronchitis, pneumoconiosis, and irritative and corrosive dermatitis or lesions of these types in the eyes, and oral or nasal mucosa, among others. These are the most common or main diseases. We must also review, as we saw in an early video, the personal protection equipment, helmets, glasses, monoglasses, face masks, earplugs, auditory shields, respirators, face masks, gloves, and even boots. And here are some examples of these protections. There are also some group protection equipment, like safety cones, safety barriers, safety signs, like this one right here, explosives, environmental detectors, payment cards, emergency showers, and eye and washes, grounding equipment, sound level meters like the one here, etc. There are also some legal framework for this equipment. There are some regulations and documents that we must review, like the Federal Regulation of Safety, Hygiene, and Work Environment, and the official Mexican standard norms. What are the duties of a company and the worker? Every worker should be prevented from carrying out any task if he or she does not use sufficient, adequate, and good protective equipment. If you are not ready to do your task because you don't have the right equipment, you should not perform that task. There are some companies such as Volkswagen that if you arrive to your workplace and you don't have the correct equipment, they are going to send you home and you're not going to get paid that day. And that and all of that is registered in the reglement of the company, that it's also registered by the Secretariat of Worker. It is the worker's obligation to care, maintain, safeguard, and use the protection equipment correctly. We also talked a little bit about this earlier. Personal protective equipment must be cleaned and inspected by workers before each use and after their use. If they are poor, have a poor condition, you should not use them, and you must well manage to replace them. In terms of head protection, we must use a helmet. There are some classification of this helmet from the general class, electrical class, or conductor. When should we use head protection? When working in proximity to energized lines or equipment, when ascending, descending, or working at the top of stairs in tasks of constructions, operation and maintenance of lines and networks, during the excavation and conditioning of properties, when traveling or performing tasks below workers who are working at a higher level. The helmet use will be the one provided by the company and suitable for the activities it performs, complying with what is indicated at our labor social security. It is forbidden to alter its original characteristics, such as drilling, painting, cutting, or adding metallic or other parts to protect helmets. The use of safety glasses is mandatory in all areas except offices. There are some lineaments. Before using an eye or face shield, check that it is clean. The protection of each of these devices is independent from, in some cases, both must be used. If your glasses or face shields are scratched or damaged, ask your supervisor to change them for new ones. All workers should be provided with eye protection, clear glasses for night work or dark for a day work. And they come from safety glasses, goggles, face shields, welding hoods, or welding glasses. We must also talk about hand protection. If you can have injury to your hands, you are obligated to use gloves. There can be some leather gloves, rubber gloves, thermal gloves, dielectric gloves, depending of the type of activity that you are performing. Here are some examples. There is also some hearing protection. Here are some examples of them. We must also consider work clothes and footwear according to the activity. There are also the need to use some belts in some activities, the safety signs, barriers, and cones. potential testers and gas detectors when needed, emergency showers and eyewash fountains. And all of these have to be established, understood, so we can measure and analyze the conditions at our workplace. And this is doing by a joint hygiene and safety commissions that are established in Article 509 of the Federal Labor Law. We must integrate them and define them as bodies that are set up to investigate the causes and of accidents and illnesses in the workplace, promote their prevention, as well as guide, support, and educate the worker regarding safety and hygiene. Each commission must have a coordinator, a secretary, and some vocals. They should have a union representative. If we go from 1 to 20 workers, if we are between 21 and 100 workers, 2 union representatives and 2 representatives from the agency. If there are more than 100 workers, 3 to 5 union representatives and 3 to 5 representatives of the agency. How frequently should we observe our work condition? At least once a month, and must cover all the facilities. And of course, at the request of workers or authorities. We must follow a path when we are observing our processes and our work space. And we must inspect cleaning, order, and distribution of facilities, machinery, equipment, and workers in the workplace, working methods in relation to the operations carried out by workers, workspace, corridors, restrooms, protections in transmission mechanisms, protections at the point of operation, status of preventive and corrective maintenance, conditions and use of hand tools, stairs, scaffolding, and others, hand carts, forklifts, self-propelled forklifts, and internal combustion engine vehicles, floors and platforms, cranes, winches, and in general, hoisting devices, lighting, ventilation, and areas with artificial extreme temperatures, electrical equipment and installations, elevators, personal protective equipment by work area, harmful agents such as noise, vibration, dust, gases, and others, dangers of explosion by gases, dust, and others, chemical substances management, methods that are followed to oil, chains, cables, ropes, rigging, access to elevated equipment, normal and emergency exits, patios, walls, ceilings, and floors, fire prevention, and mechanical risks. So, when we review safety and health at work, it's because we want to make our workspace more safe and unable to give us a disease. So this video was recorded by with the intention of giving you all the information you need. Now, it is your turn to analyze work conditions following these concepts. And that's why I told you, it's not to learn them by heart, it's to practice them, to understand them, and apply those concepts, and review the characteristics of each of those concepts at workplace. and assure your workers that they are going to be working in safe and healthy conditions. I hope you find this video useful for your learning. So see you in the next video.